Today I am joined by my friend and founder of Luster, Christina Brady. Let's talk about where you were in life when you decided that you were done working for someone else.
What burned me out was having the same issues of feeling a lack of control over my team, over my results, lacking critical insights, and feeling like a failure constantly. The best leaders in the world will say, "This is my vision." And somebody on their team will be like, "I get where you're going. That's not how we get there." And the leader is like, "This is why I hired you." I had a crummy CEO one time say to me when they asked me a question, and I said, I actually don't know the answer to that. And he goes, "Well, it's your job to know the answer to that." And I said, "No, my job is to find the answer." I slept on trains when nobody had a couch for me. It didn't register for me that was homelessness. It just kind of felt like what I needed to do. And how did we not know that we were going to make this mistake on that conversation? How did we not know that we were going to lose that deal? How were we not prepared to have that discovery call? How did they not have the collateral and the assets that we need? And the answer to that question became the company that I founded.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Life's a Pitch. Before we get into today's episode, I need you to do me a huge favor. Whatever platform you're on, so Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, make sure to follow or subscribe. I know everybody always says that, but for a newer show like this, one subscriber genuinely makes a huge difference. All right. That's my ask. Let's get to our amazing guest for today's show. What is up? Today I am joined by my friend and founder of Luster, Christina Brady. Luster is an AI-driven platform focused on improving how sales teams learn, perform, and drive revenue. She built her career in sales and leadership roles at companies like Groupon and Glassdoor, and has become one of the leading voices in sales enablement today. Her path to entrepreneurship was far from typical, with early life challenges shaping resilience and how she brings and thinks about leadership. She's known for being direct driven and focused on building something that actually changes how teams operate, not just another layer of software. Christina, what's up?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how's everything going? Long time no see.
Long time no see. It's been hours.
Yes.
And
yes.
Since then, things continue to be wild and weird. And like a mixture of awesome and terrifying. And like, I don't think at any point in my life, at least not for a long time, I felt all of the emotions almost every day. So that's good and bad.
Yeah, well, that is the life we have chosen, I guess, is as entrepreneurs. So you and I we were together last week. So this is kind of I've been meaning to ask you to come on the show, and I think I probably asked you before. Just finally, I'm like, hey, I need somebody on. Come on, like you're the perfect person for this. I think you were probably one of the first people I told that I was going to be doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Back end of last year, but yeah. So you and I are both members of Pavilion, great community. You run the Chicago chapter, and I was just actually slacking with somebody. And I said, listen, my favorite part about Pavilion is these intimate dinners that we have together.
Yeah.
So you and Pete, props to you guys for putting those on and keeping that going, because it's been, for me now, it's been a year, pretty consistent every month. Good dinner, good people, get together.
It's hard to have a community without involving the community and giving them an opportunity to engage in a natural setting, And I think prior to having an opportunity to do something like that doesn't feel forced, there were either these forced interactions or you're having to run into people at a conference or somewhere super random or like jump in a Zoom happy hour. And like everybody hates those. So
people still do those? Who the hell still does a Zoom happy
somebody
hour?
recommended this to me the other day. They're like, "Oh, we just maybe like hop on a Zoom happy hour." I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that. I never wanted to do that. No, I don't think anybody ever wanted to do that." Maybe a couple of people who, if you do disc profile, like a couple high eyes thought of that and they were like, "This is brilliant." Everyone will love it. And everyone else is
I'm
like,
a hard D for me. There's no chance.
Hard and high.
No
and like,
chance, yeah.
It's the same feeling as like if you've been to a dinner when they're like, "Okay, here's what we're going to do." So for me, you would never believe it, so I've heard, but I'm very, very introverted. And so when I'm in a situation with a lot of people I don't know, I either find the people I do know and I cling to them like crazy, or I will get to know by force the people around me and then get very comfortable in that bubble. And have you ever been to a dinner where they're like, "All right, at dessert, everyone's going to switch places"? Every single time that has ever happened, I've gone, "I have to go to the bathroom, I'll be back," and I leave. Because I can't do it again. I can't do it again at dessert. I've already done it the one time. It's not happening.
Yeah, I feel like you and I are typically sitting across the table from each other. It's the whole, if you watch Curb, which you do, There's the dinner party scene where Larry says that his main objective at dinner parties is to make sure he sits in the middle of the table so that he can control the conversation, right, on both sides.
You got to be a good middle.
There's never a dull moment. You got to be a good middle.
Got to be a good middle.
That, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like by just habit, but I like going to the middle of the table. So yeah, that's where I ultimately end up just talking to you and whoever's around our little bubble the entire time. All right,
totally.
Let's shift gears. So I want to talk about, and this is always like a fun question whenever I'm talking to entrepreneurs. Let's talk about where you were in life when you decided that you were done working for someone else. When you were just like, fuck it, it's time, I'm going to do this.
You know what was strange for me is I have worked for executives and first-time founders who were really horrible people leaders and really bad executives. I've also worked for some brilliant individuals who were absolutely incredible leaders. I would not say that I was or am burnt out working for anyone else, because I wouldn't be where I am if I had not had the access to people who were so much smarter than me giving me a seat at the table. What I will say I got tired of was the problem that I needed to be solved to succeed in those roles, not having the support or the resources or the access or the seniority or you name it to solve those issues. And so what burned me out as SVP of sales and CRO was having the same issues of feeling a lack of control over my team, feeling a lack of control over my results, feeling like I was sort of collateral damage to whatever was happening in the economy or at the company or with the product, and just lacking critical insights and feeling like a failure constantly. That burned me out and made me decide I want to see if I can solve this versus being like, I don't want to work for anybody anymore. I don't want to work for shitty people anymore. I'll tell you that much. Like that I'm burned out from. But I'm here, I think, as the result of some amazing people.
Yeah, no, that's great. And there's always that piece of it in there where you can't control when you're not listen, even as an entrepreneur, you would like to say that we can control everything that's going on in our environment, but that's bullshit. We know that we can't. But at least we made the decision to do this one like on our own. Obviously we have team members, other people. It's tough when you feel like you don't have a voice in decisions or things that are going on, and it's a helpless feeling. It absolutely sucks. Like I've been there, like you've been there, and it's just like there's a better way. But if I'm not, my job is not to convince you that there is a better way. If you're not ready to hear this, then yeah, I don't know what to say.
Exactly. 100%. If you're not ready to hear this or you don't want to hear this, like for me, and I don't want to say that I've worked for bad people. Right? We keep that to chatter off of podcasts. But I've worked for really bad leaders, right? I've worked for bad leaders. And what made them bad leaders, right? Like, I think there's a lot of people who find themselves in leadership positions and they're there because first, they have a high sense of ego and they think that they're right about everything. And two, they want to hire smart people, which is the right thing to do, but they're not hiring them to be autonomous and to run in their lane. They're hiring them to be soldiers. And so there's this really strange sort of tension that you get at some of these companies where you will see CEOs and C-suite leaders with a brilliant team of executives that they just want to take all of their orders and do whatever they say. It's like they want people to execute on their vision. But the best leaders in the world will say, this is my vision. And somebody on their team will be like, I get where you're going. That's not how we get there. And the leader is like, this is why I hired you. I hired you to not let me step in mud. The amazing leaders I've worked for will do that. And I learned that. The really bad leaders are like, no, this is the way. I'm infallible and I am thus correct. And I was like, well, I didn't realize I was working for the Pope. So I guess I'll just take my marching orders and look for a new job.
It's a good point. Pope's in the media today. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, it was kind of a tease. I mean, he's always in the last week or so. He's definitely.
Well, right.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. When you get people like who was it? It was Quentin Tarantino. I'm bringing Quentin Tarantino into this.
Bring him in.
He talked about how he knows where his lane is. He understands what he is really, really good at, and he stays in that lane. But when it comes to other aspects of it, costumes or set design or all this stuff, he's got an idea of what he wants, but his idea is not set in stone. So he's like, don't ask me questions about that. He's like, I hire people that are 10 times smarter than me to run this stuff and tell me why they're doing it. If you can give me a reason on why you're doing this, then I'm going to 9 times out of 10 agree with what you're saying, because you are the expert in this area. And it ties back into everything that we're talking about.
Yeah, I had a crummy CEO one time say to me when they asked me a question, and I said, I actually don't know the answer to that. And he goes, well, it's your job to know the answer to that. And I said, no, my job is to find the answer to that. I said, I don't currently know the answer. I said, and so my job that you hired me to do is, if that's something that's in my sphere of influence that I need to solve and I don't know the answer, I am perfectly qualified to go find what the answer is and deliver it back to you. And it's like, I don't know that I would have had the sharpness and the gusto to answer it that way without having, again, some really good leaders that weren't afraid to tell me, like, it's not your job to know everything. Nobody can know everything, but you have to know how to use the tools that you have to get there if it's in your bubble. And I'm like, yeah, totally.
That's a good last line for this particular topic. So you've gone through, as I mentioned in the opening, you've gone through things that most founders haven't, and most founders, like, a lot of this happened, most of this happened before you were a founder, like losing your parents, being homeless. Didn't know that. I've known you for like 6 or 7 years. I didn't know that. Just rebuilding from scratch. How does that change the way that you handle pressure today compared to other founders?
I know what a really, really bad day looks like, and I've experienced as close to being at the bottom and losing anything as I think most people. And I don't come from wealth. I don't come from trust funds. I haven't had one or any big exits with a lump of cash to sit on. I don't have anybody in my life that if I'm in financial trouble or any kind of trouble that I can call. I've become that person. And for me, in my young life, losing one parent right after the other and losing essentially everything. So when my mom and my dad passed away, they were both musicians. And as musicians, they're not W-2 performers. And so they didn't have life insurance. They didn't have health insurance. They didn't have anything. And at this time, when they passed away, both of them 1 year after the other, and they were divorced, but had nothing but a pile of debt and no insurance and nothing left behind. And so when I was 20 to 21, we lost our family home. I had to watch people go in an estate sale and buy all of my things to try to pay off the debt, like my prom dresses and like all of my things. Wasn't allowed to even go into my own home and claim some of the things from my childhood. And then at the time, I was still in college, finishing up my senior year, and I was not making enough money in retail to be able to support myself living in an apartment. So I had to make a choice. I either finish college and pay my way through college, or I can't finish college because I can't pay for school and pay for a place to live. And so I spent 6 months to a year couch surfing. I slept on trains, right? I learned that the Red Line in Chicago, it runs for 24 hours. And if you sit right behind the conductor, it's usually pretty safe. Like, you can kind of pass out there and kind of put a hood over your face and nobody will bother you. And so I sat and I rode the train sometimes overnight when nobody had a couch for me. I've slept in train stations. I've had horrifying and terrifying experiences. I uncovered that the bathrooms at the Nordstrom on Michigan Avenue, at least they used to back in 2007, open up at 7:30 in the morning and nobody is in there. And the sinks are huge and they have great water pressure. So I'd like be washing my hair and my clothes in the sink before going to class. And at the time, what's weird is it didn't register for me that was homelessness. It just kind of felt like what I needed to do. And I'm very lucky. I had friends who lived on campus and who lived in apartments, and I had couches and I had places where I could leave things here and there. So I was like, this is just kind of what I have to do to get by. And most people would think that was the hardship. The hardship was watching first my mom and then my dad pass away very, very young with so much regret of what they still wanted to do in their life. I was there. I was the only one of my sisters who was there for both of my parents at the time of passing and right before passing. And I listened to both of them as they realized that it hit them what was going to happen. It was regret. It was regret. I wish that I would have done this. I wish that I could have done this. We never got a chance to do that. And that to me was the hardship of two incredibly brilliant people who left so much to the world, who were realizing they'd never see their kids graduate from some high school and others college. They would never meet my grandkids. They'd never see me in my first job. They'd never get to know the woman that I become. I would never get to have a beer with my dad or a drink with my mom. And it's just like that moment of realizing that these people are leaving before they're ready. And it gave me this idea of what time really means, right? Time is this non-renewable resource, and we don't know how much of it we're going to have. And once it's gone, it's gone. We never get it back. And so what you take up your time to do and the time that you take from other people, you are robbing them or gifting them the greatest resource ever. And so when I go into work every single day, and I have hard days, and my God, I have hard days like all of us, but I think about the worst thing that could ever happen is, what do I lose? I lose my things. I lose my house. I've done that before. I know how to get through that. I've built relationships with people that no matter what, I know that I'm going to be okay. And if I can get through that, I can get through this. And that's what powers me through. And so having that no safety net, having to bootstrap myself, not coming from a wealth mindset, not having anybody to ask for help when I've needed it, it's just made me a really gritty founder. And I don't have any quit in me.
I mean, that's powerful. The timing aspect, like the regrets. Like, I think even at the age that we are today, at least I'll use myself as an example. Like, I have regrets on things that I wish I would have done when I'm younger, but I still tell myself that there's time to do the things that I still want to do. But when time is taken from you, like, that is something that it doesn't feel comfortable thinking about, because it causes so much anxiety to think about it. But it can happen literally like that. And if you're not doing these things and protecting your time and doing it for you, like, it's your life, it's for you, like, don't do it for somebody else, then yeah, it could be gone pretty quickly. So that's crazy. I did not know, again, the red line stuff, where to sleep on the red line is nuts. Yeah. But I could also see, like, just that was your like normal day, so you didn't view it as anything.
It wasn't until later, like reflecting, I was like, that was crazy that I did that. Yeah. Like, in the moment, it didn't, and that's what happens when you're going through anything that's traumatic or massive or life-changing. As I found so many times, you're not recognizing it in the moment. For me, I was like, well, I don't really need my studio apartment. I can sell this stuff and I can leave this here, and I bet I could get by with that for a few days. And that just turned into months. And it's like, and then later I'm like, wait, I was homeless. I didn't have a home. Like, it's just, it hits you and you're like, whoa.
Wait a second. Yeah, I was homeless. Let's stay there, because I think this probably, time is a good kind of segue. You found success pretty early on in sales. And you've said that you didn't love what you were selling. Like, you have to love what you're selling. I think most salespeople would say that. Did you know when to stick it out, to get better versus when it was time to change direction completely? Like, did that early life lesson, like, help you decide, like, I'm not waiting around for this, like, time is too valuable, like, time to move on?
Oh, yeah. This is another, like, my past experiences made me operate in such a weird way where I'm just like, so, my first sales job ever. So this was when I realized that I could no longer continue this sort of nomadic lifestyle. I was like, I need to be able to pay for a place to live. I need to be able to support myself. I need to figure out how I'm going to make what's happened to me mean something and not let this define my life in a bad way, but define it in a good way. And this was, 2007, 2008, this was like the housing crisis, the insurance crisis, the AIG shit was going on. And I was like, perfect time to find a job. But the places that were hiring were insurance companies, right? Like crazy, because they didn't have to pay you a base salary. As long as you could pass some tests and get your certifications or your licensing, you could sell insurance. And for them, they're like, we don't care how many agents we go through, right? Like, so I was like, it's the perfect, I've always been a really good test taker also. So I'm like, let me get this straight. You're going to pay for me to take these tests. The faster I can slam through them, the quicker I'm going to get hired. And the more of them that I take, the more money I can make. And then you're just going to give me a bunch of leads and tell me that I can control how much money I'm going to make. I was like, these people are crazy. This is insane. Like, that was I was like, you're nuts. And now in my mind, people were like, there was a no base role. It was commission only. And I was like, yeah, but like, I could do anything I wanted. Like, I just viewed it very, very differently. And so I slammed through all of my licensing as fast as possible. I got my life, health, auto, 663, 722, all of it. And I was like, I'm going to be a fiduciary. Boom! When I was like 21 years old. It's so stupid that they let that happen. I was like, yeah. I can help someone retire. Like, I had the licensing. And so I was really good at selling insurance and financial products. I have a background in improv and comedy, and I would use that. And I realized that I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, this is the kind of job where I can sort of like do whatever I want. I can talk to people however I want, and I can call them whenever I want. I can work as many hours as I want. And it's like, I just had this kind of like crazy loony mindset. And then one day it hit me where I was like, I'm sitting here and my life's work is calling people close to retirement age in the middle of dinner and reminding them of their own mortality and then asking them for a financial investment. Like that's what I'm doing. And I have no business doing that. And there was a client that I had who was in his late 50s. He was really not well set up to retire whatsoever. And he's like, can you help me put this together? Like, my family depends on it. And in that moment, the first place that my mind went was, I could sell him anything. I wonder what I can sell him that I make the most commission on. And then my conscience and my brain slammed into each other. And I was like, I am not honoring anybody who has come before me by sitting here in front of this person who genuinely trusts me and wants my help. I cannot put aside my desire and my need to make an income in order to truly help him, and so I shouldn't. And I had like this attack of conscience in my early, and I was like, I can't live with myself if I don't do the right thing for him, and I don't know how to do the right thing for him because all I can think about is, what is my commission on these products? And so I passed it off to a senior agent and I quit. Like, I didn't have anything else lined up. I just quit. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm not responsible. I can't hurt people. This is the one thing that I know, is that I cannot deliberately hurt people. It would be slapping the people who have come before me in the face if I become someone who is hurting someone to make money. So I was like, I can't do that. I went to bartending, and I bartended for a while until someone's like, you're in sales, you should check out this company Groupon. Like, they're hiring 60 sales reps at a time. And I was like, Groupon? Like the coupons? I can sell a coupon. Let's go. I interviewed at Groupon, and it changed the trajectory of my life.
You were part of the Groupon tree from Chicago. I think like
I was like the OG. Yeah, like the early Groupon when it was weird. It was always weird, but it was like really weird when I started. Like, people were riding around on motorized coolers and throwing beers at people at 3:00 in the afternoon. So many fist bumps. I think a lot of HR violations probably, but.
Yeah, but I mean, it was one of the I think Groupon was one of the first unicorns that came out of Chicago, right?
The first tech unicorn.
First one?
Come out of Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole separate conversation rabbit hole we could go down with the Groupon days. But I want to talk about Luster.
Yeah.
Your baby right now.
Baby. Yeah.
So sales enablement has always been kind of like viewed as a cost center, right? Yeah. I mean, what did you see that made you believe that you could actually like tie it directly back to revenue? I think that's something that is always a gamble whenever we're talking about sales enablement.
Yeah, I mean, for me, sitting in an operator seat for, call it 19 years, right? Starting as a sales rep selling insurance, working up to SVP of sales and CRO, and then sitting in just every seat in between. I've also been lucky enough, I've been a trainer for the last 16 years. And so because I have this maniacally curious mindset, I'm certified in 7 different methodologies, and that's allowed me to train over 30,000 revenue professionals. And in that amount of time, 7.
All 7.
Yeah.
I'm looking at all the books, and I bet you have probably read and are certified in all of these sales books that I've got on my shelf.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think any one of them is the way to go, which is like crazy. But like, I was like no, say I if you are a company, you're like, yeah, we use. I don't want to get sued. So we use Mallinger at our company. I want to be like, that's probably not like the one lane you should pick. There's elements of that. That's another rabbit hole that we could go on. But with everything that we know and all of the tools that we had, what drove me nuts in the role that I had and like culminating in that before starting this company is I was like, how did we not know that we were going to make this mistake on that conversation? How did we not know that we were going to lose that deal? How were we not prepared to have that discovery call? How did they not have the collateral and the assets that we needed? We have a huge enablement team. How are we making customers consistently this collateral damage to our inability to understand if our people know how to do their job? We train people like crazy. We onboard them for weeks and weeks and weeks. They have peer mentors. We have tools like Gong where we can listen to any call that we want. We have a CRM. We have an LMS. We have a CM. We have all these tools. And yet My forecast was off because my team didn't understand what their performance was going to be. How is that possible? And for me, it was like, what would be the way to fix this? I was like, if I could wave a magic wand, what do I need to know to actually be an effective executive and stop revenue leak before it starts? And the answer to that question became the company that I founded.
So let's dig into it. Talk to me a little bit about what Luster is. Obviously, I'm very familiar with it, and I have, the early days of how we used to duct tape and piecemeal these types of things together, before like everything that is available at our fingertips now with technology. Like, this is it. Like, this is a salesperson back in the day that used to record my in-person meetings that I'd go in, and I'd come back, and then I'd train them, and then I would do mock pitches with some, like, it's like all of this amazing work with data behind it. So tell me about Luster. What is Luster? Who is it for?
Yeah, we're a predictive enablement company, and that's something that we're actually trademarking. We did not intend to create a category, but it kind of wound up happening. Predictive enablement in its most simplistic form is the ability to identify when your customer-facing team's skill deficiency is about to leak revenue or increase churn, and proactively ahead of those failed conversations or engagements, stop that from happening. We remove the point of failure from the actual customer conversation and the result to identifying it ahead of time and stopping it before it does. So even if you think about like a call intelligence tool, right? A call intelligence tool is looking in the rearview mirror, right? It's making your customers collateral damage. Like I mentioned, it's saying, hey, you had a really bad call 3 weeks ago, and I happened to catch that. And too bad we burned that customer. Let's hope it doesn't happen again. Meanwhile, your team is making hundreds of mistakes that you can't see. The need for that spanned from a lot of experience, but most of the time I would hear people say, and I would think like, well, we have call recording systems, we have Zoom, we have Gong, we have Course, like what, like we can just listen to calls and we know the coaching opportunities. Let's say that you even had a team where you had a bunch of really brilliant managers and all they did all day was listen to calls. Now, you can make the argument that that's a terrible use of a sales manager, but let's go with the thread that people want us to pull, right? You got amazing sales leaders that are all spending all day long listening to calls. When I was the head of growth at Glassdoor, I was in charge of a large portion of the management team. And we trained all of the managers on our methodology, which at that time was a blend of like Covey and Medic with a little bit of the med pick infused in it. But our managers were like trained. They were trained. And every week I'd pull a call and I'd pull all the leaders in a room and we'd listen to a call that already happened with a real customer who was impacted by this rep's ignorance and inability to actually do the process correctly. But we'd all listen to this call that already happened. And in that conversation, I'd say, okay, everybody, I want you to listen to this entire call, which is taking up an hour of executive time, 20 executives in the room, salaries $200,000 plus for an hour in a room. Calculate the cost of that meeting. And we'd sit there and we'd say, okay, name something that they should start doing, something they should stop doing, and something they should keep doing. Nobody agreed in that room. Nobody agreed on what was good, what was bad, what they should keep doing. Certain elements they would agree, but it was a room full of a bunch of brilliant people having a lot of opinions. How am I, as the executive revenue leader, supposed to teach my people what good actually looks like? If we are not operating from a common denominator of what success looks like, then even the most brilliant managers spending all day listening to calls aren't going to be able to effectively manage a team. It's all based on subjective opinion. And so what Luster is going to do is it's going to build itself based off of what objectively good looks like at an organization, and then diagnose all of the customer facing employees and let you know today where they're proficient based on the skills they need to have and where are they deficient. We're then going to look at the actual calls they have scheduled on their calendar, because even if they have a gap, if they don't have to perform against that gap in the next 2 weeks, you don't need to train them on it right now. They're not going to use that skill. Don't waste time, right? So our predictive layer says, let's look at all the calls they have on their calendar against their proficiency map, because we can now, ahead of a bad call, identify when you're about to have one. We can see a call and know where you're going to make mistakes because we've already diagnosed where you're deficient. Then ahead of failed conversations, we're custom building and prescribing enablement assets so that we can measure you to proficiency ahead of a conversation. Last thing, which is that safety net of support, sales managers don't know what calls to attend. right? If I'm managing anywhere from 5 to 11 sales reps and they have 6 to 7 calls every single week, as a leader, what calls should I attend? Usually it's the ones my reps ask me to attend, or I default to the biggest deals. What Luster can do is say, here's all the calls your team has this week. Here's the monetary value of all of those. And here's the reps that are not going to effectively lead that call. And then as a manager, I can make a decision based on data, which calls I have to attend and how I have to show up. So I just built what I wished I would have had.
Yeah. I mean, see, it's super simple. Sounds easy.
Super simple.
So when you've got this, let's say you've picked the reps that are basically going to fail. Like, you know that they're going to fail because, the past predicts the future. And you've got a sales manager that says, okay, hey, this team, this side, they're good to go. I got to follow these three. I got to make sure that we can continue to help them improve. Is it up to the managers at that point to go in knowing what Luster is feeding and saying, this is where the mess ups, or this is where the talk track often shifts to the wrong direction? So is the manager also learning from the data that's getting from Luster and then able to coach the team member? Or tell me about how, what the action items are once this data comes out, other than the fact that the manager has an idea of who it needs to focus on.
Yeah. This is a great point, because the other thing I experienced as a leader is how many tools and services just abandon middle management, right? You can train your entire team on any methodology or process that you want, but if your middle management doesn't know how to enforce that and inspect it, it's not going to adopt, point blank. And so what Luster is going to do is not only alert managers to where there's revenue risk associated with skill deficiency, but it's also going to give them every single week a comprehensive coaching report with reinforcing methodology for every single person on their team. So as a manager, I'm getting a guide on where are we stepping in mud, where are we doing well, what calls is that happening on, and where do I need to coach each individual rep this week in order to ensure an ingrainment of our process or our methodology, or even just a deal progression. And so managers are getting that support every single week too. And right, one week it might be these 3 reps really need me to focus in on them because they're about to hurt their performance and I know where to coach them. The next week it could be 3 totally different ones, right? And so that's the thing too, is sometimes your top reps step in mud. Would be nice to know about that before they do. You can also use Luster to practice those coaching conversations, right? So as a manager, I can actually practice having a coaching conversation. I can practice an interview. I can practice having a difficult feedback conversation with a rep before I have one, so that I feel like I have a tool that is also helping to up-level me as a leader and as a coach. Yeah. And also not practicing my coaching on the people that I need to coach. Yeah.
I think that's it's easy to say build the plane as it flies.
Right.
But you can't do that.
Once you're on it.
Yes, exactly. It's very hard as a manager and somebody, especially in the sale, to teach and coach, not even teach, coach a salesperson where they're messing up. You can't just do, you have to better yourself before you can have that conversation. And if you go into that conversation not having all the tools and the artillery that you need to have it, then it's setting not only you, but also that rep up for complete and utter failure. And it's wasting time. It goes back to time.
That's why, it all comes back to time. Even me, before having a tool like this, when I was first a sales leader, I was a really bad coach. I was a great sales rep and I knew what good looked like, but being able to translate that to another person in a way where they heard me, they didn't feel defensive, their armor was down, they understood and felt valued and validated. All of those things are a mixture of hard and soft skills that a lot of times top performers don't translate immediately.
Yeah. Awesome. So we could continue to talk about the sales world. That's a whole separate conversation because I've got plenty of opinions there. The last thing I wanted to ask you before we get into the extra innings, rapid fire stuff, the fun stuff at the end, is the fundraising, the fundraising side. People talk about raising money like it's validation, right? But it also creates a completely different kind of pressure. What did that actually feel like once you stepped into it, the world of fundraising? And because you've raised, what is that new pressure and how does that affect your day to day?
That pressure was massive and debilitating, because from being in revenue for as long as I have, I can predict with about a 2 or 3% accuracy whether a deal is going to close or not very, very early on. And I've gotten really good at that. I can just predict the signals and the signs. I know what to ask. I know what's going to happen. It is completely different signs, and it's a different process and everything in VC. It really is. And that's just kind of the route that I went to raise. And so being caught off guard so often, or being led down a path and then they switch on you really, really quickly. And it felt so personal. And what I talk about early on in my life was the fact that I am okay living in and dealing with scarcity. I am okay if I hit rock bottom because I know that I'm going to be all right. The pressure of having a company and people whose livelihood relies on me as well, that was a whole different ball game, right? I was like, if I'm not successful in this raise, if I'm not successful in this company, I have 11 people who have left well-paying jobs to come and build this vision with me. And if I can't get this done, I'm failing all of them too, and all of their families and all of their lives. And I'm now introducing a trauma story to them, which again is something that I've promised I would never do. I'm going to become the person where it's like, I took a chance on this startup and I lost everything, and that's going to be my fault. That pressure was debilitating.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it again. I haven't gotten to that point yet from a raising standpoint, but I got to imagine that because you've got now money coming in from outside investors, that it just completely changes the game. So, all right, let's
have some
shut
fun.
It down here at the end.
Finally.
This is the section that is called Extra Innings because, again, I always say this, it is a baseball-themed podcast because I am a baseball lover. So it's called Extra Innings, but in essence, it's rapid fire. All right, so I'll give you a few questions, give me a quick response, and I will try not to go down deep, dark, long rabbit holes or commenting back. All right, first question. What is one lesson that you've taught others in life or in work that you think more people need to hear?
My big thing, I have it tattooed on me, is make it mean something. And so whatever you go through in life, positive, negative, make it mean something. Don't do great things without purpose, and don't go through hard things and survive them without purpose.
It's good. Well said. What's something that you love talking about that drives everyone else in your life crazy?
I come from like a Nordic Scandinavian background, and I'm kind of obsessed with Viking lore because I have ancestors that lived in Uppsala. And so I'm very obsessed with like the way that they wrote and their culture. And like, so anytime I see anything like in a TV show, it's about Vikings, I'm like, well, that's not historically accurate because they're using Elder Furthark and not young. And they're like, shut up, Christina. And I'm like, I'm sorry. So it's like, it's really obnoxious. And anybody that hears me go on a soapbox, I apologize for ahead of time.
Have you been there? Have you been out to Norway and Scandinavian countries?
No.
What are we doing? Get out there.
You know what? I know. I'm working on it. My bucket list item in life is Paris, and I still haven't even been able to go there. So one thing at a time.
Okay. All right. What is the last thing that genuinely scared you?
I was at an arcade with my 8-year-old last night, and he texted me from the bathroom, the men's bathroom, that he sharted himself and needed help.
That's a good one. Did he say shart? He said
yes.
Shart? Oh,
yes,
that's good.
And that was putting it lightly. So.
Oh God,
I had to go in there.
As somebody with an 8-year-old, I can appreciate that.
I had to go in there
himself.
At a Lucky Strike across from Wrigley Field during a Cubs game, so wasn't crowded at all.
Throw it away, throw the underwear away, obviously, and then on with the life. Or no, was it that bad?
I found out he didn't wear underwear. He was just wearing shorts, and he had
just
one pair
freeballing
of shorts. He was
interesting.
Yeah. So genuinely, like, I put my hands on my face and I said, "Honey, I don't know what to do."
Oh God!
I've never said that before as a parent. So, if you want to know what happened with that, find me on LinkedIn.
So, all right. So the problem was solved, apparently.
No, he's still alive, luckily. The problem was solved. Fine. We got out of there.
Yeah, I mean, hey, better. No offense, better him than you, I guess, in that situation.
Honestly,
people can understand an 8-year-old doing it.
That's right.
All right, this is the part, by the way, just a little as a callback to my episode with Leslie. This is where I asked Leslie the last thing that scared her, and she went into an ICE conversation about ICE killing people. And then I completely skipped, like danced over her answer. And I go, okay, what's the most important, biggest piece of software that you use that you can't live without? And she just goes,
wow,
that's a great segue. Great
that's
segue,
a great
Jared.
segue after that. Let's talk
Yeah.
about trauma and then we'll just move on.
Trauma. So from your son gambling and losing all over himself in the bathroom across from Wrigley,
Yep.
to what is the one software that you cannot live without? Not counting Luster.
I was like, it's going to be Luster, granola.
Okay.
Like the notes summarizing the end of a call, you know where I've used it the most, honestly, is because I've been, we have salespeople now, but when I was the only one running revenue, those notes in the CRM for me were a lifeline. At one point in time, I was working 48 different opportunities. And even as a sales rep, that's pretty heavy. And so like it saved my life to be like, oh my God, yes, that's right. That's what we were talking about. Like granola. I wish I could take it with me everywhere because I have horrible memory for a lot of things, but mostly like people's names. You tell me your name, it's like there's a shredder in my brain. It's immediately gone.
Oh, yeah.
It's immediately gone. Boom. That's it. Tell me your name, gone.
That's bad because we don't. What is that, by the way? Here's a rabbit hole. Because I'm terrible. If somebody gives me a name and I just meet them, it's literally, I'm with you. It's immediately gone. I'll remember their face forever. Like I will see them somewhere and I don't remember. Even when we go out with friends that I've hung out with multiple times, I'll have to tell my wife like, hey, completely forgot this person's name that I'm going to introduce you to. So you have to jump in and introduce yourself so they can say their name and I can remember it. It's bad.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. We're in sales. We should know this shit. Like this should be easy for us, right?
You would think, but nay.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a new one that's not scripted, but I think that it needs to be asked in these rapid fire extra innings. What are you building right now and what are you using to build it? So are you building any type of tools that can make your life easier in Claude, in ChatGPT, and Gemini? What are you building and what are you using?
I mean, for me, it's so much of what I'm building is just infused in the company that I am building for. Mm-hmm. And so right now, the biggest thing that we're working on is that element of predictive tech. There's a series of third-party infrastructure and custom coding that we are building to do that. But we're using it for our company as well, right? So the predictive tech that we are looking at is, can we look at every future engagement that an individual has and proactively identify where it's about to go wrong? That's not just for customers. We're using that as well. So that's one piece of it. And then the other piece of it is we used our own product to hire. So we used our own product to be able to identify if we were hiring the right people and if they had the skills that they said that they did. And so I think for me, building a tool for go-to-market professionals as a go-to-market professional, using my tool for go-to-market, it's like everything that I'm building for me and testing for me. Yeah. Because that's how we started with our hiring product is I was like, I want to use this to see if we're hiring the right salespeople. And we're like, wait, actually, everyone can do this now. So that's, it's all in one.
Good. Eat your own dog food. Love it.
That's right. what
is the one truth about business or being an entrepreneur you did not believe until you actually lived it?
The loneliness. And the loneliness is a rare kind of loneliness. It is not loneliness in terms of people, because I find that as a founder, I have more people around me than I have before, and I have more folks who understand what I'm going through, and I have more resources. The loneliness is more when it is hard, when it is difficult. There's so few people who can understand what it is, and there's so few people that you can talk to about it, right? Like if I have a concern about my actual business, I can't go to my employees and be like, man, I'm really concerned about the money in the bank right now. Like you can't, like there's certain things you just can't tell other people. And there's just a lot of stress and strain that you just have to own. I mean, especially you think about the raise process. That fundraise was an unbelievably lonely journey. Yeah. So it's the loneliness. Yeah.
That's why you got to surround yourself with other people going through it. There's, communities, EO, YPO, all that fun stuff. All right. Two more quick ones. What if you're going to a dinner party and you could pick 3 people to go with, living or dead? Who are those 3 people?
Mine are going to be all really art focused. So first is my mom. My mom was an unbelievably jovial and wonderful person. At her wake, the line was 5.5 hours long of people who just wanted to pay their respects and talk about how much she changed their life. And I always thought, as a kid how much fun it would be to have a relationship with my mom as an adult. And I always thought about like what it would be like to be at a dinner party with my mom and just see her in that element instead of being my mom. So first person I would invite is my mom and be able to see her in like her full 360 who she was. Second one would be Robin Williams. I just think
that's
like
a good one.
Brilliant man, brilliant comedian, such an element of depth. And I think if we could bring him back and just talk about what led him to where he made the decision that he did could potentially help a lot of people. And then the last one would be Steven Spielberg. I just feel like I'm like stuck between Steven Spielberg and Stephen King because I'm a horror fan. So like, I'd have to see which one is available.
Yeah.
We'll just say
Spielberg
Steven.
would be
You don't
crazy.
know, and you don't know which one I mean.
Yeah. Whoever shows up, you're going to be happy either way when they walk through the door.
That's right.
All right. First concert, last concert.
First concert, Incubus. Last concert, Lady Gaga.
Oh, that's reel that one right out. So Incubus, were they playing alone or were they with another band?
It was a festival. So like it was, but like they were like they were like the big headliner at the festival. This was a long time ago. I was in high school. But I remember them. Like it was an Incubus concert, but they were like probably 4 or 5 bands that were still as a part of it, and then they ended it, and all the merch was Incubus, and so I got a T-shirt and everything.
I've seen Incubus before. I think I saw Incubus open for 311 one time, a long time ago.
Oh, I saw 311 concert too. So good.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody. I think they're coming to the Salt Shed. I think there's a good chance I may go back and check them out at the Salt Shed this year. Yeah, in June.
Ping me immediately. June
or July. Yeah, we'll offline conversation. And then Lady Gaga, fun Lady Gaga story, and then we got to wrap it. I used to live on East Randolph in one of the high rises when I first met my now wife. She lived over there, and there was a Mariano's right behind, like where Maggie Daly Park is. They were building it right behind in that little park. There was a Mariano's, and I was sitting there. We went down and that's where we would go shopping. And I was like going through apples or whatever. And I heard this lady like right next to me talking to her mom saying, "Mom, don't worry about it. Let it go. Not a big deal." And I'm like, that girl's voice sounds familiar. And I kind of looked over and I did a double take, and it was Lady Gaga was sitting there. It was her because she was dating the guy from Chicago Fire at the time. So my story is that I was pulling apples next to Lady Gaga. That's it. That's all I got. Nothing crazy.
I love it.
I wish there was more.
I love it when you said Lady Gaga story, and I was like, I can't wait.
Yeah, she was telling her mom to calm down and not yell at the people at the store. So that was good.
Yeah.
All right, Christina, anything you want to get out before we end it today?
I would say if you want to hear anything more about anything that I said, you know where to find me. And if you are a leader of a revenue or customer facing team and you right now today do not know what revenue leak inducing mistakes your team is about to make, and you'd like to know what those are and stop them before they happen, also come find me.
And how do they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Christina Brady. You can email me, christina@luster.ai. You can come to Chicago, try to track me down.
There you go.
Those are the ways.
That works. You can find her cleaning up her son's mess in the bathroom. All right. Awesome. Well, that is a wrap for this episode of Life's a Pitch. Big thanks to Christina for just having an awesome conversation, sharing a lot of her background and what she's building at Luster. If you liked it, share it, go subscribe. I need subscribers. We don't have enough right now. I don't have enough. And if I want to get more guests on, we just have to continue to keep growing this thing. So go subscribe. It would be awesome. You could just steal something that Christina said and pretend it's yours, or borrow it and pretend it was yours. And remember, behind every strategy, title, or success story, there is chaos, self-doubt, and a whole lot of trial and error. We'll see you next time.